Imagine you're the Vice President of the United States.
Hmm.
You've got this multi-billion-dollar intelligence apparatus right at your fingertips.
Right. The whole machine.
Exactly. You've got the nuclear codes.
Yeah.
You were sitting in this highly secure room with a classified briefing book. And then you realize, with this just absolute sinking feeling in your stomach, that you are losing a critical geopolitical conflict to a 19-year-old shouting into a microphone on YouTube. Welcome to 2026.
Yeah, it is a profound collapse of the traditional power structure. The entire apparatus of statecraft, the satellites, the treaties, the secure lines, suddenly it's all rendered entirely impotent by, engagement metrics.
It really is. And if you pull out your phone right now, listener, you are already living in the precursor to this scenario. You're trying to navigate a world where the line between global diplomacy and viral content has just completely dissolved.
Absolutely dissolved.
So today we are doing a deep dive into a really fascinating piece of world building that strips this whole dynamic right down to its core.
Yeah.
We're looking at a single blog post dated April 13th, 2026.
Yeah, authored by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat.
Right.
And the centerpiece of this blog is this satirical narrative titled Barack Face, J.D. Vance's Dashed Hopes for Peace in Islamabad. But, and this is crucial, the satire itself is really just the bait.
Oh, totally.
Because the author has embedded this massive amount of futuristic world building into the margins, the sidebars and the related book titles surrounding the text.
It's so dense. And just to set the ground rules for you, listener, before we really get into it, this text uses real names. We are talking about J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, Narendra Modi. But I want to be super clear. We are absolutely not here to play political referee.
No, not at all.
We are exploring this purely as a fictional satirical landscape to understand the author's underlying theories on media, technology, and society. We aren't taking sides. We aren't endorsing any political viewpoints, left or right. We're just, analyzing the architecture of this 2026 reality.
Right, because the author is basically using these recognizable figures as avatars, right, to explore a much deeper structural problem. The focus isn't on their real-world policies, but on how these types of figures operate inside an algorithmic pressure cooker.
An algorithmic pressure cooker. That's a great way to put it. Okay, so let's unpack this, because the scene the author sets right at the beginning is incredibly vivid.
It really sets the tone.
It does.
Yeah.
So, Vice President J.D. Vance touches down in Islamabad, Pakistan. And the text makes a point to note he has a classified briefing book, severe jet lag, and this unshakable conviction that YouTube has ruined the planet.
Which, honestly, relatable.
Right. Who hasn't felt that way?
Yeah.
But his official mission is, quote, regional stability. But within 90 minutes of landing, he is locked in a heavily air-conditioned conference room at the U.S. Embassy, and he's screaming at a PowerPoint slide.
A PowerPoint slide titled, "Why Does Everyone Think They're Winning?"
Yes. Why does everyone think they're winning?
And that image, the classified briefing book versus the PowerPoint slide is the central tension of modern governance in this story. Because consider what a classified briefing book actually represents,
Right, it's the old way.
Exactly. It's the pinnacle of the old world order. It contains vetted intelligence, satellite imagery, intercepted communications. It's basically an attempt to establish an objective, verifiable reality on the ground.
It's like the map of the chessboard. It tells you where the pieces actually are.
But the PowerPoint slide Vance is yelling at, that represents the new digital reality. It doesn't map physical territory at all. It maps emotional resonance. It's entirely narrative-based.
Wow.
And what Vance is discovering is that the emotional map has completely overlaid and obscured the physical map. The populations involved, they don't care about the briefing book. They only care about the narrative of victory being fed to them through their screens.
It feels, to use an analogy, it's like an elite chess grandmaster showing up to the world championship, sitting down, meticulously adjusting his pieces, only to realize the audience and the player across from him think they are in a WWE professional wrestling match.
Oh, that's good.
Like he's trying to play the Karakan defense, and everyone else is just waiting for someone to jump off the top rope with a folding chair.
I'd actually argue your WWE analogy falls a little short of how dangerous this scenario is.
Really?
How so?
Well, in professional wrestling, the audience is in on the joke, right? They know it's scripted choreography. But in the 2026 reality this author has built, the crowd genuinely believes the folding chair is a nuclear weapon.
Oh, man. And they are demanding blood. They don't know it's a performance. The shared illusion of the old world where adversaries at least agreed on the basic facts of, who won a battle or what the GDP was, that has completely evaporated.
Wait, so if there is no shared baseline of facts anymore, how does a diplomat even function? Like, what do they do?
Well, often they don't. And that is exactly the crisis Vance is facing in the text. Policymakers are increasingly forced to react to the internet culture of a foreign nation rather than their actual military intelligence.
That's terrifying.
It is. Because if a domestic population vehemently believes a completely fabricated narrative just because they saw a viral video, the diplomat can't just dismiss it as fake. They have to shape real-world, kinetic policies to manage that digital hallucination.
And the hallucination Vance encounters in this satire is terrifyingly specific.
Yeah.
Like, he corners his national security advisor, a guy named Steve, and he goes down this list of who exactly is consuming this content.
Yeah, the breakdown is fascinating.
He points out that Iranian hardliners are staying up until 3 a.m. Tehran time, quote, mainlining Indian right-wing news and American conservative cable. And he explicitly names Arnab Goswami and Sean Hannity in the text.
Right, which is just a wild combination.
It's insane. The text says these Iranian viewers are watching this stuff on loop, convinced they have already conquered Tel Aviv, and they are literally celebrating with cake.
So we really need to look closely at the mechanics of why that specific cross-pollination is happening. Because, on the surface, it seems totally counterintuitive that Iranian hardliners would seek out Indian or American domestic broadcasts.
Yeah, you'd think they'd have their own state media for that.
Exactly. But an algorithm doesn't understand geography, and it doesn't understand traditional geopolitical alliances.
Right.
It only understands emotional valence.
Emotional valence, okay.
It recognizes a user's biological signature, right?
Yeah.
The increased heart rate, the sustained gaze, all of that happens when they are exposed to highly aggressive, nationalistic, adversarial content.
So the algorithm is just playing matchmaker for outrage. It doesn't care if the broadcaster is technically, an enemy of the viewer's state,
Right.
as long as the tone is sufficiently aggressive.
That's it, perfectly. The emotional frequency is the product. The algorithm finds the most potent source of that frequency and just serves it up, regardless of origin. It creates these bizarre transnational echo chambers built entirely on the aesthetics of dominance.
Which brings Vance to his absolute breaking point regarding Pakistan's internal YouTube ecosystem.
Oh, this part is brilliant.
He tells the Pakistani foreign minister that his staff showed him a channel called Pakistan Victorious Forever, which, great name. It has 4.7 million subscribers. And their marquee video is a 2-hour, highly produced documentary titled How We Defeated India in 2025.
A completely fictional war.
A totally fictional war. The thumbnail is literally an Indian flag on fire. And Vance is just losing his mind because this fictional video has 3 billion views. 3 billion.
Yeah, 3 billion views on a narrative about a fake war is a staggering metric. But it perfectly illustrates the concept of hypernationalism as a digital narcotic.
A narcotic. Break that down for me. How so?
Think about the underlying psychology of the viewer in this scenario. If you live in a region defined by historical conflict, economic instability, or, geopolitical anxiety, your baseline state is stress.
Right. You're just constantly tense.
Exactly. So a 2-hour documentary detailing a decisive, glorious victory over your historical rival, that provides a massive, unregulated hit of dopamine.
Oh, wow.
It is absolute escapism disguised as news. The 3 billion views aren't a measure of people seeking information. It is a measure of people self-medicating.
Self-medicating with fake history. And Vance calls this out in the text. He says, it's like professional wrestling, but the wrestlers are nuclear powers and the crowd is on fire.
Which is such a vivid image.
But the reaction from the Pakistani foreign minister is what really stuck with me. Like, Vance is having an existential meltdown over 3 billion views on a fake war. And the foreign minister just offers this tiny, polite smile and says, our boys are enthusiastic.
Yeah, it's a brilliant piece of character work by the author, but it also reveals a terrifying geopolitical strategy.
Right, he's not shocked.
Not at all. The foreign minister isn't ignorant of the channel. He is fully aware of the mass radicalization happening online, but he views it as a utility.
The utility.
Yeah, because a distracted, hyper-nationalistic population fighting invisible wars on YouTube. Well, they aren't protesting in the streets about domestic economic failures. The digital delusion is a pressure valve.
But if this delusion is a pressure valve, who is manufacturing the steam? Vance asks his advisor this exact question. He just stares at Steve and asks, why are they doing this?
And the advisor gives this incredibly blunt diagnosis. He just says it's their business model.
It's their business model.
Right, they have to make it look like one side is winning one day and losing the next to keep the viewers hooked.
This is where the satire transitions into a really sharp critique of cognitive behavioral mechanics.
Exactly. The advisor is basically describing a variable ratio schedule of reinforcement.
Like a slot machine.
Exactly like a slot machine. That's the exact psychological mechanism. If the channel simply stated, "We won, it's over," the dopamine hit happens once and the viewer logs off.
Right, there's no reason to keep watching.
And if the channel says, "We are losing, all is lost," the viewer gets depressed and logs off. So you need the constant swing.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because Vance digests this and he filters it through this folksy Appalachian lens. He says, and I love this line, back home we got a saying, if the hog's winning on Tuesday and the hog's losing on Wednesday, maybe the hog's just fat and the scale's broken.
It's so good. The broken scale analogy is really the intellectual core of the entire piece.
Let's dig into that.
So the fat hog represents actual reality. Reality is often slow, boring, structurally sound, and relatively unchanging day to day.
It just sits there.
Exactly. But you cannot monetize a static hog.
You can't monetize a static hog.
You really can't. So the media ecosystem builds a broken scale, which is an interface designed to produce wild artificial fluctuations.
And Vance hits the nail on the head right after that. He realizes they aren't reporting news. They are, quote, selling hope in 15-minute increments.
Selling hope in 15-minute increments. It requires an environment of constant manufactured precarity, and the author uses the American context to drive this home, too.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't just pick on the Middle East or South Asia.
No, Vance notes that Americans believe their country is simultaneously collapsing in anarchy and experiencing the greatest economic boom in human history.
Depending on the hour.
Depending on the minute. They are fed both narratives on the same channel, separated only by commercial breaks. The truth is entirely irrelevant. The goal is to induce a state of emotional whiplash that prevents the viewer from ever looking away.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I mean, if you open your favorite news app right now, you have to ask yourself, are you looking at the actual hog, or are you just staring at the broken scale?
That's the question.
Because what the author is suggesting is that truth has been completely decoupled from the information economy. The only metric that matters is engagement arbitrage.
Right.
You know, producing the cheapest possible emotional stimulus to capture human attention and then selling that captured attention to advertisers or political campaigns.
And that realization, when it hits Vance, it leaves him completely paralyzed. I mean, he has diagnosed the disease, but the traditional tools of statecraft offer absolutely no cure.
Right. You can't sanction a YouTube channel.
Exactly.
So he turns back to the Pakistani foreign minister and asks a deeply human question. He asks how the minister sleeps at night, knowing teenagers are being raised on fake history, believing they've won every war since 1947, including, and this is a great detail, wars they allegedly lost on purpose so their cricket team wouldn't be distracted.
It's so absurd. But the minister's response is easily the most chilling line in the satire. He just shrugs and replies, "We have excellent air conditioning and very strong denial. You should try it. Works wonders."
Excellent air conditioning and very strong denial. It's so cynical. It really is.
It is the ultimate expression of elite insulation. The air conditioning is a metaphor for the physical and economic barriers that separate the ruling class from the consequences of the digital environments they allow to flourish.
Like, let the peasants fight in the virtual mud.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The streets might be burning with algorithmic radicalization, the teenagers might be living in a militant fantasy world, but as long as the embassy is cool, the tea is hot, and the structural power of the elite remains unchallenged, they simply do not care. The denial is a deliberate psychological strategy to avoid dealing with a problem they have no capacity to solve.
It's the geopolitical version of putting your fingers in your ears and humming loudly. But Vance, at least in this moment, he refuses to do that. He is looking at this PowerPoint slide, and out of sheer desperation, he mutters, maybe we should just invade YouTube.
Which perfectly highlights the absolute absurdity of kinetic warfare in the digital age.
Totally. His advisor, Steve, has to gently remind him that invading a website isn't actually a real military option.
No, sir, we can't deploy Marines to a URL.
Right, exactly.
What?
So Vance concedes. He says fine, but the next time an Iranian general WhatsApps him to brag, Vance is going to send him a link to Pakistani YouTube. Because in Vance's words, at least those guys have production value.
But in saying that, he is openly acknowledging that the conflict has shifted entirely from the physical domain to the narrative domain.
He's surrendering the physical world.
He really is. He isn't threatening to send a drone strike. He is threatening to send a superior piece of digital propaganda. The highest echelon of global power has been reduced to trading links in a group chat.
It's pathetic, honestly. And the way the satire ends perfectly seals this trap. Vance delivers this grand, cynical closing statement about God blessing America and God helping anyone who thinks the news is real. He storms out to go eat some biryani.
Ew.
But the text notes that according to 3 separate aides, the moment he sat down, he opened YouTube.
Yep. The critic is inextricably bound to the machine he is criticizing.
And the source gives us his top search result. It's titled, "Why J.D. Vance Secretly Loves Pakistan, You Will Cry."
I want to look at the structural engineering of that title. Why J.D. Vance Secretly Loves Pakistan, You Will Cry. It is a masterclass in weaponized syntax.
Oh, break that down because we see this everywhere.
Well, it utilizes the paradox, the secret love, to create an information gap that the human brain feels compelled to close.
Like an itch you have to scratch.
Exactly. And then it provides a parenthetical emotional command.
Yeah.
You will cry. It is bypassing the prefrontal cortex entirely and speaking directly to the amygdala.
And it works. Even on the guy who just spent an hour and a half deconstructing how fake it all is with his national security advisor, he clicks it anyway.
Because intellectual awareness of a trap does not disable the biological mechanisms the trap is designed to trigger.
Man, that's bleak. But why is Vance, why is anyone in this 2026 world so desperate for these 15-minute dopamine hits in the first place? If you zoom out from the text itself and look at the margins of this blog, you realize why people are hiding in these digital fantasies.
This is where the world building gets really intense.
Yeah, the real world of 2026 is terrifying. The author has built this intricate, high-stress backdrop through the news feed surrounding the post.
The ambient anxiety of the world building is crucial to understanding the satire. The escapism only makes sense when you understand what they are trying to escape from.
So let's decode these headlines. We are in April 2026. The feed hits you with a New York Times alert. Trump attack on Pope and posting of Jesus image draws widespread criticism.
Right.
Immediately below that, a foreign policy headline. Pressed by Russian drones, Ukraine turns to ground robots. Then you have the UK refusing to join a U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
And the tags on the blog post itself amplify this tension. You've got mutual assured catastrophe in the Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, held hostage. The author has constructed a reality where the physical world is literally on the brink of structural collapse.
A blockade of the Strait of Hormuz would cripple the global energy supply overnight.
Entirely. And the transition in Ukraine from aerial drones to ground robots signifies a chilling evolution in warfare.
I really want to focus on that ground robots headline. We've seen how aerial drones have completely changed the geometry of modern conflict today, making the sky constantly hostile. But ground robots...
Aerial drones maintain a degree of distance, but ground robots suggest autonomous trench-level combat. It implies that the technology of killing has become intimate, mechanized, and deeply persistent.
Like Terminator stuff.
It is a world where machines are hunting humans at eye level.
It's pure nightmare fuel. But the true genius of this world building isn't just the apocalyptic news, it's the juxtaposition.
Yes.
You are reading about ground robots fighting in Europe and global economic strangulation in the Gulf. But sandwiched right between those headlines is a Wired article titled 4 Best Water Filter Pitchers, 2026.
Right.
PFAS, microplastics.
Right.
And right below the Strait of Hormuz crisis, you have a headline reading, Elon Musk, who owns X, appears to post on TikTok.
This is the phenomenon of the flattened information feed.
Yes. Explain the flattening, because this is exactly what it feels like to scroll on a phone today.
So in a traditional print newspaper, there is a physical hierarchy of information. The existential threat to the nation is in a 72-point font on page 1. The review of the water filter is buried in the lifestyle section on page 14.
The layout tells you what matters.
Exactly. The medium itself tells your brain how to weigh the importance of the information.
But on a digital timeline.
On a digital timeline, everything is reduced to an identical tile. A structural threat to global shipping occupies the exact same pixel dimensions and requires the exact same biomechanical flick of the thumb to bypass as a billionaire shitposting on a rival social media platform.
Or a review for a water filter to remove microplastics, which, by the way, is its own kind of localized, intimate terror, like the world is burning overseas and your drinking water is actively poisoning you at home.
Exactly. The flattening creates a state of pervasive, unresolvable cognitive dissonance. The human brain is simply not evolved to constantly shift between processing the threat of mechanized global warfare and the banal celebrity gossip of a tech CEO back and forth every 3 seconds.
It's exhausting.
It overwhelms our threat assessment architecture completely.
So when your threat assessment architecture is overwhelmed, you retreat.
You retreat to the algorithm that sells you hope in 15-minute increments. You go watch a 3-hour documentary about a fake war your country won, because it is cognitively easier to process a fictional victory than to navigate the chaotic, flattened reality of actual 2026.
Man, that connects so perfectly to Vance and the embassy. This brings us to the deepest layer of the author's world building. Because Paramedra Kumar Bhagat isn't just building a cynical, terrifying world, he is simultaneously outlining a massive, incredibly detailed blueprint for how to fix it.
Yeah, the tonal shift here is really remarkable.
It is. If you scroll down past the headlines, you hit a bibliography of the author's speculative book titles, and it is a wild mix of hard technology, economic theory, and deep spirituality.
It represents a comprehensive architectural plan for what he calls the convergence age. The author seems to be arguing that the chaos Vance is experiencing is merely the growing pain of a society transitioning between paradigms.
I want to break down these concepts because they are dense and super interesting. Let's start with the hard tech. He lists a book titled Agentic AI, said to explode in 2026. Now, we talk about generative AI a lot today, chat bots that write emails or generate code. But what is the leap to agentic AI?
Generative AI is fundamentally passive. You give it a prompt, it returns a synthesis of data. It is an incredibly sophisticated autocomplete.
Right, it waits for you.
Agentic AI, however, implies autonomy and action. An agentic system doesn't just draft the email negotiating a contract. It has the authority to send the email, negotiate the terms in real time, digitally sign the agreement, and initiate the wire transfer from your bank account, entirely without human intervention.
So it's the difference between an AI that gives you advice and an AI that actually takes the wheel.
Precisely. Now imagine introducing agentic AI into the geopolitical landscape Vance is trying to navigate.
Oh, no.
If a nation's military response systems become agentic, how do you conduct diplomacy? If an algorithm decides that a preemptive strike is statistically necessary based on the engagement metrics of a foreign population, the human diplomats are entirely obsolete.
They're just locked out of the room.
Yeah.
Which makes the author's other book titles so fascinating. Presagenetics, the technology that lets us watch life think, how photons, cells, and AI may help us cure cancer and rewrite medicine. He is suggesting a future where we merge agentic AI with biology at a microscopic level. How do you, quote, watch life think?
It suggests a level of biotechnological monitoring that borders on the quantum. If you use advanced photonics and AI pattern recognition to map the electrical and chemical signaling of cells in real time, you are no longer just treating symptoms.
What are you doing then?
You are observing the decision-making process of biology. You can see a cell decide to mutate into cancer, and theoretically, you can use an agentic biological intervention to rewrite that decision before it manifests.
That is an incredibly optimistic vision, like compared to the screaming on YouTube. He also mentions liquid computing, the future of human-tech symbiosis.
Liquid computing usually refers to the dissolution of hardware boundaries. Instead of a discrete laptop or a smartphone, computational power becomes an ambient utility like electricity.
It's just everywhere.
Right. It flows seamlessly between edge devices, the cloud, and perhaps even neural interfaces. You don't use a computer. You exist within a computational environment.
Okay, so we have agentic AI taking action, presagetics curing disease at the cellular level, and liquid computing turning the environment into a brain. But how does the author bridge the gap between that utopian technology and the absolute mess J.D. Vance is dealing with in Islamabad? Like, how do we get from A to B?
He bridges it through a concept he heavily promotes in his other titles, Kalkism, the economic and spiritual blueprint for an age of abundance, and the concept of karmaism.
Kaligism. This sounds like a massive pivot from biotech to theology.
Well, it is a synthesis of the two. In Hindu eschatology, Kalki is the final avatar of Vishnu. He's prophesied to appear at the end of the Kali Yuga, which is the current age of darkness and moral decline, to usher in a new era of truth and abundance.
Yeah.
So by naming his economic blueprint Kalkiism, the author is explicitly framing our current technological and media chaos as the end stages of the Kali Yuga.
The age of darkness, where diplomats scream at U2 and people drink microplastics.
Yes. The author's thesis seems to be that technology alone cannot save us. Agentic AI deployed within our current broken business model of hope and outrage will simply automate our destruction.
It'll just make the slot machine spin faster.
Exactly. Cockism suggests that we must align our economic and technological systems with a spiritual awakening, a real recognition of global interconnectedness.
And he offers a mechanism for this, right? He mentions a concept in one of the titles, velocity money. How does a spiritual awakening intersect with monetary policy?
Velocity money is a fascinating theoretical concept. In traditional economics, money often stagnates. It pools in offshore accounts or massive corporate reserves, doing nothing to generate economic heat.
Just sitting there like the fat hog.
Precisely. Velocity money implies a programmable digital currency designed to maximize its own circulation.
How do you program money to circulate? Like, how does that work?
You could encode it with a localized decay rate. If you don't spend it within a certain time frame, it loses a fraction of its value. Or, conversely, the currency gains fractional value the faster it changes hands.
That's wild.
It mathematically penalizes hoarding and incentivizes immediate, constant economic activity at the ground level.
It forces the capital to actually work for the society, rather than just sitting in a vault. And the author clearly believes this kind of structural reset is the only way forward. He even has titles proposing very specific grounded solutions, like a reorganized UN, built from ground up, and free education and healthcare for all in Nepal by way of a referendum.
This is why the bibliography is the perfect counterweight to the satire. The satire diagnoses the disease. We are trapped in a low-level, primitive attention economy that rewards tribalism and outrage. We are stuck staring at the broken scale.
And the bibliography is the cure.
It is the realization of our potential. We have the underlying capacity for precigenetics, for liquid computing, for an age of abundance fueled by velocity money, but we are currently using our most brilliant engineering minds, our most advanced algorithms, to figure out how to make a teenager in Islamabad or a hardliner in Tehran click on a thumbnail of a burning flag.
We are using supercomputers to build better slot machines.
Precisely. The meta-narrative the author has constructed is a profound warning. He is saying, look at how absurd and small we are being. Look at J.D. Vance, a man of immense physical power, reduced to a helpless consumer of emotional manipulation. If we do not elevate our collective consciousness, if we do not adopt a framework like Kalkiism to guide our technology, we will remain trapped in this digital Kali Yuga forever.
It really makes you look at your phone differently, doesn't it?
It should make you deeply suspicious of your own impulses.
So, listener, we've journeyed through the absurd, air-conditioned halls of 2026 diplomacy. We've decoded the flattened reality of a world on the brink. And we've explored a visionary blueprint for an age of abundance. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a direct challenge. The next time you open your feed, the next time you feel that surge of outrage or that sudden unearned hit of nationalist pride, I want you to pause.
Ask yourself, are you looking at the hog or are you looking at the broken scale?
Exactly. Are you engaging with reality, or are you just buying a 15-minute increment of hope from an algorithm that doesn't care if you live or die as long as you keep clicking? Are you genuinely learning, or are you insulated by excellent air conditioning and very strong denial?
And if we connect all of this to the bigger structural picture, the final question we have to grapple with is this. If wars are no longer fought over physical territory, but are waged in the emotional landscapes of billions of isolated users, what does a peace treaty in the age of agentic AI even look like?
Yeah, how do you sign an armistice with an algorithm?
You can't, which means the only way to end the war is to refuse to play the game.
Something to think about the next time you feel the urge to argue in a comment section. Until next time, listener, stay curious and keep questioning the scale.